Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Salutations to all the rest of you degenerates. Hope that everybody's doing well tonight. For me, I'm having a wonderful day. Pardon me, just a little bit of a cough. I just had a wonderful dinner with my lovely wife. Just chilling, enjoying a little bit of television, and then just come down and get to shit talk for a few hours, and thought it would be fun to come on and see what all kind of interesting news was happening in the world. And it occurs to me that everybody gets all worked up about, oh Lord, the end of the world is on its way, it is coming. I've been hearing that most of my life, that it's just around the corner. Climate change is going to kill us. The seas are rising. The world is growing colder. The world is growing hotter. It's turning into a desert. The icebergs are melting. There's not as many animals on the ice floes as there used to be. Just worse and worse and worse. And a long time ago, I decided it really wasn't as worse as they let it be. It just really wasn't quite there. Just was, I guess the best way to do it is just to look at the news of all the crazy stuff that's out there that you see, that really should have your heart warmed and make you just love the world even more. How about this? There we go. Nothing like seeing a car crushed by falling rocks. Nobody cares. I mean, just the devastation. And why is this happening? Yeah, see, why is this rock crushing into this Toyota? Could it be because, well, that rock doesn't like Priuses? Maybe it mistakenly thought that was a Honda. Maybe these folks parked it there to get insurance because they got a ragged out garbage of a car. And look at that. The paint is completely just destroyed. That's a bad paint job. It's not a special car. And that's sun damage right there. That's a lot of sun that car has gotten. That and poor maintenance. I think what the most annoying part of it is I bet he's really mad because he probably had just gotten an oil change not just about a couple of days ago. And now, where his front seat was, now sits a boulder that weighs more than that car. Just absolutely devastating. Rocks come down, off of these mountain slides. And you would think that maybe they would dig that area back just a little bit further. Might be helpful if they did that. Might not have these kinds of issues. It's a novel idea. Or possibly just don't park your car in that spot. But as we see here in the news, California's scenes showed devastation from flooding sinkholes amid a barrage of atmospheric rivers. I've never heard of an atmospheric river. Moisture from rounds of rain have created dangerous mudslides and sent trees sliding off mountain roads. California first responders have been busy rescuing people from sinkholes and flooding. I still don't know. I've never heard of a atmospheric river. What I'm going to do is I'm going to look up what exactly is an atmospheric river. What are atmospheric rivers? Atmospheric rivers are storms akin to rivers in the sky that dump massive amounts of rain and cause flooding, trigger mudslides, the result of life and enormous property damage. Well, to me, that just sounds like a bunch of rain. Just a bunch of rain. That's all. It's made up. Of course, if you pull up Wikipedia, the reason that they're using this kind of language, atmospheric river, is because atmospheric rivers consist of narrow bands of enhanced water vapor. Okay. Transport, typically along the boundaries between large areas of divergent surface airflow, including some frontal zones, in association with extratropical cyclones that form over the oceans. And they're also called Pineapple Express storms, are most commonly representative and recognized types of atmospheric rivers. The name is due to the warm water vapor plumes originating over the Hawaiian tropics that follows various paths towards western North America, arriving at latitudes from California and the Pacific Northwest to British Columbia and even Southeast Asia. In some parts of the world, changes in atmospheric humidity and heat caused by climate change, I would beg to differ. But there it is, your reason. Humidity and heat caused by climate change. But it only happens in some parts of the world, because other parts of the world might get normal rain. It's expected to increase in intensity and frequency of flood events caused by these atmospheric rivers. And this is expected to be especially prominent in the western United States. And of course, the term was originally coined by researchers Reginald Newell and Young Zhu of the Massachusetts Institute of Technology in the 1990s to reflect the narrowness of the moisture plumes involved. These rivers are typically several thousand kilometers long and only a few hundred kilometers wide, and a single one can carry a greater flux of water than Earth's largest river, the Amazon River. There are typically 3 to 5 of these narrow plumes present within hemisphere at any given time. It's pretty silly. That's it. It's large amounts of rainfall. Is it the end of the world? Is that what happening? I don't know. It could be. Well, these atmospheric rivers, they continue to pummel California this week, making roads impassable, creating massive sinkholes, and dropping more than a foot of rain in some places. California is in its third week in a row of heavy rain brought on by a series of back to back atmospheric rivers that kicked off right after Christmas. After the last system passed, strong winds and intense rain continued, with another atmospheric river forecast to arrive later this week. All the moisture from rounds of rain have created dangerous mudslides and sent trees sliding off mountain roads. Half a dozen roads in Santa Cruz are closed due to mudslides and landslides. Oh, look at the devastation of mudslides. And you know what will happen after these atmospheric rivers have washed away all of these trees, these giant pieces of firewood. Oh my gosh, look, the telephone poles are leaning due to these atmospheric rivers. As they dig out the mud from the roads, things are awash. They just slide away down from atmospheric rivers. Their souls are crushed from these giant atmospheric rivers and washed into the sea to wash back up again. It's devastation from all the rain. Well, if you don't want to be in one of these atmospheric rivers, you could always be in a safer position. Oh my, look, the mud washed a tree, uprooted it, and down it goes. Oh my gosh, this was all caused from an atmospheric river. All of it. Atmospheric rivers everywhere. Hundreds of linemen are positioned around the state to restore power outages caused by downed trees and power lines from the heavy rainfall and high winds. You know, back when I lived in California, they had El Nino and La Nina, the boy and the girl. There were storms that would roll in. It was not uncommon. Near the Fresno area, crews were using excavators and other heavy-duty machinery to move car-side boulders for State Road 168 that fell during a rock slide on Monday. That's usually what you do whenever you have the tectonic plates that have pushed all of this stuff up out of the ground, and it's going to break loose at some point in time, get a little bit of an earthquake, a little bit of water rushing up underneath it, and wow, it's amazing. That's what happens. Of course, now they have the California Atmospheric River Map Tracker, latest data on power outages, flood, and wind alerts, rain totals. Waves and winds, still getting some high winds. It's a busy 24 hours with emergency crews responding to numerous trees and wires down throughout the country at East Cliff Drive. California Highway Patrol troopers have seen some of the weather extremes firsthand as they are busy with road closures and responding to numerous downed trees. And life-threatening flooding continues. Well, it wouldn't be as life-threatening if you would not stand that close to the water. Just a thought. And just think about the guy standing in the water taking the picture. That is so dangerous. You might want to be careful with that. Not do those kinds of silly things. The NWS office in Los Angeles is calling the recent atmospheric river event the city's most impressive storm since January of 2005. Southern California is reporting some of the highest two-day rainfalls. Between 13 and 17 inches of rain have already fallen in just 2 days across some, not all, but some coastal foothills in Ventura and Santa Barbara counties. Videos in Santa Barbara counties shows mud-covered roads using and rushing water as the rainfall continues on Tuesday. Several inches have fallen in the Los Angeles coast and metro areas. That's it? Los Angeles and coast? Los Angeles was overcome by floodwaters on Tuesday. Atmospheric river. Video shared by Sandy Eccles showed commuters attempting to navigate the flooded metro by bike and, if they were lucky enough, by golf cart. Toppled trees on the train tracks also caused delays for Los Angeles Metro passengers this week. Buses were brought in to shuttle passengers between stations after trees brought down overhead wires on the tracks between Southwest Museum and South Pasadena stations. Look, a tree fell. Drone footage from California Department of Water Resources shows excessive flooding, which is expected to continue as more rain is forecast in the coming days. Weren't they just in the middle of a drought? I'm pretty sure California just had a drought. Now, I guess they shouldn't have been doing their rain dances. Shame on them. Shame on them for doing rain dances. Look, this is what happens whenever you let those damn people out of casinos and make them dance to bring more rain into your city. I am joking. Look, mom and pop's one-man shack caused by these atmospheric rivers. You got Jimmy over here on a bicycle wondering, when are these atmospheric rivers going to stop? Make them stop. Make the rain stop. Make it go away. Make my life easier. Just whole neighborhoods underwater. First it's a recession, then it's a depression, and then we get flooded out as this river that we're in this floodplain and things are filled up with water. Whatever shall we do? Now we have multiple rivers. So amazing. As flooding conditions worsen, officials continue to issue evacuation and shelter-in-place order. So which is it? Do you shelter in place or do you evacuate? I guess that would be the biggest question. Swift water rescues were underway in parts of Ventura County. A resident became trapped by the rising Ventura River, according to the fire department. Atmospheric river brings weather rarities to California. Lightning seen from NOAA's Goes West satellite on Tuesday, January 10th. The series of weather systems is also bringing unusual and extreme weather to California. California is one of the least lightning-prone states in the county. Okay, that makes no sense at all. Maybe they should have said country, but they said county. On Tuesday, lightning could be seen from NOAA's GOES West satellite in space as rounds of lightning rolled onto the California coastline. NOAA's Storm Prediction Center forecast a low chance of a tornado occurring for parts of central California. Another rarity for California. Los Angeles firefighters rescue at least 2 people after a 15-foot wide sinkhole opened up in Chatsworth, California, swallowing multiple cars near California State Road 118. Dramatic time-lapse video shows the floodwaters turn into rivers from atmospheric river slamming California. Well, 2 people were hospitalized after being pulled from the sinkhole, and 2 others were able to climb out of the sinkhole unharmed, according to Los Angeles Fire Department. That's unfortunately what happens when we have a series of atmospheric rivers, Fox weather meteorologist Britta Merwin said of the constant rainfall. Merwin explained the excessive moisture is to blame for the sinkholes opening up. I will say, if the sinkholes are opening up, you might want that extra moisture, because there is nothing worse than having a dry sinkhole. That would be painful. Why not a wet sinkhole? The ground is so saturated and all of the groundwater is going underneath of the road. Let me fix this for you. The ground is so saturated that the groundwater is going underneath the road. And this is what happens, is water going underneath the asphalt is literally pulling back on the dirt, and there's nothing to support it, and so it caves in. Well, you've just figured out how a sinkhole is created. Isn't that amazing? Californians will still have to deal with rain and flooding concern for several more days, as more atmospheric rivers are in the forecast over the next 7 days. Yeah. Is California going to wash away? Well, some people might say that would be a good thing. Does not necessarily mean that it will. This kind of destruction isn't uncommon. But with a name like Atmospheric River, how can you go wrong? I mean, it just puts the E in entertainment. We'll come back to that story a little bit later. I may even do an interesting read of that one. Because, everybody has people that they really despise and don't enjoy having run their countries. And if I'm not mistaken, there was the ending of NAFTA, which is the North American Free Trade Agreement, because that particular agreement was just bad. Really bad. But the interesting part is they won't let that change them trying to push this through again. As you can see, the leaders of U.S., Canada, and Mexico, they show unity despite friction. Oh, unity despite the friction. Look at that. Isn't it special? So special. North American Leaders Summit. Because, well, no mask. No mask, Joe. Why not? I mean, for God's sakes, you got a guy wearing these silly little socks. Silly little socks. But we stand in unity as our ladies hang out over here and make sure that your shoes match her dress. But I'm going to be different. I'm going to wear white. Why not? Look at these silly boys. Oh, one is confused as to where he is. The other is confused as to who he is. The other one's as confused as why he is there. But hey, they can. Joe Biden probably thinks he's in a presidential debate, of course. And, someone's going to make a meme out of this. Especially whenever you got old man sitting over here and he's just showing him the love. Of course, Goofball, surprised he's not standing around with, well, why does he always just have that I pooped my pants look on his face? And oh my gosh, imagine this. They're trying to save the planet. Look at that. As you can see, they're meet at the 10th North American Leaders Summit at the National Palace in Mexico City, Tuesday, January 10th, 2023. The opulence, the lights, all of the electronics. I wonder how much electricity it takes to tell everybody that they should power down their vehicles. I really wonder. It's a curious question. But of course, the AP reports in Mexico City, President Joe Biden, Mexican President Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador, and Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau sought to downplay their frustrations with one another on migration and trade as they met for a near annual North American Leaders Summit. Well, here's a wonderful idea. This might not be the best plan, but I think I can solve two problems here. So they've got frustration over migration. So US doesn't want to have all of the southern border come over to the United States. And of course, Canada, is frustrated with the trade and the way that it's set up. And hell, the rest of America is frustrated with California because of all the flooding. So how about we build a fence that goes all across the southern border, goes up through California, hits Washington, goes right up into Canada. Look at that. We'll just build a wall all across that seaboard right there, because when California drops into the ocean, it won't really matter. They can just wade on through, head right on up there to Canada. Do you think they'll make it up that far? Especially if we stop subsidizing California and we stop getting things from California. It would be an interesting thought experiment to just build a wall all the way up through there. Maybe take a few other states along the way. Could be interesting. But I'm a sick person. The leaders offered a unification front on Tuesday despite tensions that have put a strain on their relationship, even as Biden has made repairing alliances a cornerstone of his foreign policy agenda. Really? Is that so? Doesn't seem to me that that would be a true statement, but sounds good. The tensions were front and center when Biden and Lopez Obrador met on Monday, with the Mexican president complaining of abandonment and disdain for Latin America. Well, how are you abandoned? And I don't understand this disdain. Could it be that Mexico didn't send those people that were migrating up through Mexico into the United States? And, well, that might have been because Joe Biden said, come on, come along. We're not going to build the border wall. And they started flooding in across the southern border, going through Mexico. Do you think that people might be a little bit upset with Latin America that allows this to happen instead of turning them back at the border? Not our border. Turn them back before they got there. United States might have been a little kinder. Or the people of the United States would have been a little kinder. But that wouldn't have gotten Biden his voters. But what do I know? I'm just a lowly old mechanic. That's all I do. Well, I'm a paralegal now, but I was a lowly old mechanic. I'm not a smart one. But that's what they wanted. That's what they got. But as they closed Tuesday's summit in Mexico City with a joint news conference, the leaders offered an optimistic outlook. We're true partners, the three of us, said Biden, adding that they had a genuine like for one another and we share a common vision for the future, grounded on common values. Lopez, for his part, thanked Biden for not building even 1 meter of wall. Well, geez, isn't that amazing? Of course he would thank Joe Biden for not building 1 meter of wall because, well, they shut that down. They couldn't stop the flood of immigration coming across, but by God, they were going to send billions upon billions of dollars to go fight another war. Well, because that war pays good money for the people that are funding your next run, your next election. Yes. That's a special thought that they have for us. Didn't build another meter of wall. So here we go again with the same BS. Only 2 years in, and we've completely destroyed what it took 4 years to at least get under control. But as they closed Tuesday's summit in Mexico City with a joint news conference, the leaders offered an optimistic outlook. We're true partners, the three of us, said Biden, adding that they had a genuine like for one another. We share a common vision for the future, grounded on common values. What's that common future? What would be those common goals? Lopez, for his part, thanked Biden for not building the wall. And so, a not so subtle dig at Biden's Republican predecessor, Donald Trump. The warmth during their joint press conference stood in stark contrast to the more brusque exchange a day earlier. So there was a brusque exchange between him and Biden. Amazing. Still, Lopez prodded Biden to insist Congress. Now, if that just isn't the bee's knees. regularize undocumented Mexican migrants who work in industries where American employers are struggling mightily to find enough workers. Is that true? Is America short of manpower? So the trick here is the wording, because America, they're saying, is struggling for manpower. Would that be the manpower that they have in China? I don't think the U.S. is struggling for manpower. They might be struggling to pay their employees because it's just gotten out of control with the spending. I mean, for Christ's sakes, who's going to build that missile that's going over to Ukraine to be fired upon more civilians? Who's going to be supporting that? Who's going to take care of the children? Does no one care for the children? I don't think anybody cares for the children. I think that they are just using this as more garbage to get people worked up. Now, I've got nothing wrong with someone that's a migrant worker that is coming from Mexico and they're able to make a decent amount of money, send it back to Mexico, and keep their kids, in perpetual labor. If that's what they wish to do. So their three-way gathering is held most years, although there was a hiatus while Trump was president. It's often called the Three Amigos Summit. Okay, I don't know who came up with that, but that's not a thing. A reference to the deep diplomatic and economic ties among the countries. Well, Three Amigos was a reference to a movie. However, the leaders have found themselves at odds, especially as they struggle to handle the influx of migrants and to crack down on smugglers who profit from persuading people to make the dangerous trip to the United States. Well, isn't it amazing that Mexico hasn't stopped it on their end? In addition, Canada and the U.S. accuse Lopez of violating a free trade pact by favoring Mexico's state-owned utility over power plants built by foreign and private investors. Well, isn't that just the bee's knees right there? You're not using our power plants, so... maybe we'll just, give you a hard time. Meanwhile, Trudeau and Lopez are concerned about Biden's efforts to boost domestic manufacturing, creating concerns that U.S. neighbors should be left behind. Okay, creating concerns that U.S. neighbors could be left behind. Okay. I don't think you know how this works, but you're so wrong on so many bases, AP. Trudeau emphasized in a one-on-one meeting with Biden the benefits of free trade and warned against Buy America policies that the U.S. administration had promoted. According to the Prime Minister's office, nearly 80% of Canada's exports go to the U.S., so avoiding protectionism remains a priority for Canada. Those key takeaways from the summit revolve around better connections among the three nations and a shared goal of a stronger North America on energy, and in particular, semiconductors. Okay. Oops. Right here, in case you're following along. So, semiconductors. Okay. So, in case you don't understand, what it takes for a semiconductor to be worth anything, that would be electricity. Without some form of electricity, why do you need a semiconductor? Because, well, without energy, a semiconductor is just rendered completely useless. Climate and a pledge to cut methane emissions. An agreement to manage large waves of migrants coming to the region and more cohesive regional strategy on dealing with future pandemic-related health threats. Okay. Yeah, just not even going to go there. But notice they say future. In their talks on Monday, Lopez challenged Biden to improve life across the region, telling him that you hold the key in your hand. You got the whole key in your hand. You got the whole key. It's in your hand. Yeah, you got the whole key. It's in your hand. You got the whole key in your hand. So this is the moment for us to determine to do away with this abandonment, this disdain, and this forgetfulness for Latin America and the Caribbean. Okay. What in the hell is he rambling on about? Abandonment, disdain, and forgetfulness for Latin America and the Caribbean. How much control does Mexico have over the actual Caribbean? Well, okay. Biden responded by pointing to the billions of dollars that the United States spends in foreign aid around the world. Of course, we spend billions of dollars sending it to another war in another place that's not even attached to us. Why would we take care of our southern or northern neighbors? To hell with them. There's big money to be made in a war. Come on. Come on, man. Come on. At the start of Tuesday's Biden-Trudeau meeting, the leaders spoke familiarly and with optimism. Trudeau called the U.S. President Joe, and Biden joked with Trudeau. After the Canadian leader had delivered a statement to reporters in English and French, and that he should have paid more attention in his college French classes. Biden and Trudeau also discussed their country's efforts to support Ukraine nearly 11 months after the Russian invasion. Canada announced Tuesday that it would buy an American-made National Advanced Surface-to-Air Missile Systems, or NASAMS, to be donated to the Ukraine. Only one, huh? So, why don't we check out what a NASAM is? Oh, NASAMS. So it really depends on what you're actually getting, but this right here is a NASAM. In case you're wondering, that's all they were going to donate is just one of these to the Ukraine. And guess what? It's Norwegian Advanced Surface-to-Air Missile System. And look who the designer is right there. I mean, if I were a stock trader, I might think that was pretty interesting because, especially when you got this person here. Oh, wow. These guys right here, Raytheon. I wonder if that had anything to do with Raytheon. Let's look it up. Oh, you pull this up right here. So I wonder if maybe that could have had something to do with it. Look at that. They jumped up to $100 all the way from 99.92. Then they sort of mellowed out just around that $100 mark, and amazing. Raytheon, of course, they're saying it's underperforming the market. I mean, I don't give any sort of stock advice, but sounds like an invite to me. I wonder if that really helped him out or not. But anyhow, with our NASAMs, so there basically would buy just one American-made NASAM. I wonder who that benefits. The medium-range ground-based air defense system, which protects against drone, missile, and aircraft attacks, costs about, oh geez, look at that, $406 million, and brings Canada's contribution to Ukraine to more than $1 billion since the start of the war. Go figure. White House said in a statement that leaders also discussed the generational opportunity to strengthen supply chains for critical minerals. Now, what would those critical minerals be? And where are those critical minerals coming from? Wonder. Electric vehicles and, of course, semiconductors. The U.S. administration also announced that Biden will make his first visit to Canada as president in March. He's been a president for over 2 years, and he's just now going to make it to Canada. Biden and Lopez haven't been on particularly good terms for the past 2 years. The Mexican leader made no secret of his admiration for Trump. Now, what's really odd is that up here, just a minute ago, he was just supposedly talking bad about Trump. And then all of a sudden, he's was buddies with him. It just makes no sense to me. Oh, look at that. Last year skipped Los Angeles Summit of the Americas because Biden didn't invite the authoritarian leaders of Cuba, Venezuela, and Nicaragua. Despite the tension, there's been cooperation. The U.S. and Mexico have also reached an agreement on a major shift in migration policy, which Biden announced last week. Under the plan, the U.S. will send 30,000 migrants per month from Cuba, Nicaragua, Haiti, and Venezuela back across the border from among those who entered the U.S. illegally. Migrants who arrive from those four countries are not easily returned to their home countries for a variety of reasons. Well, no shit. In addition to 30,000 people per month from those four nations who get sponsors, background checks, and an airline flight to the U.S. will be able to work legally in the country for 2 years. Amazing how it's a 2-year plan. Number of migrants crossing the U.S.-Mexico border has risen dramatically. During Biden's first 2 years in office, there were more than 2.38 million stops during the year that ended September 30th, the first time the number topped 2 million. That's almost 2.5 million. That would be 2,380,000. Just keep that in mind. Almost 2.5 million in 2 years. And they are wanting to say, well, how about 30,000 migrants? Well, how about this? We don't grant any sort of migratory visas. We send all but 30,000 back. Sounds like a good plan to me. Lopez spoke at length about Mexico's efforts to control the flow into the United States of fentanyl. Of course, why wouldn't you want to control the fentanyl? The synthetic opiate that has become a scourge for many American communities. He noted that his government gave the military control of seaports to help with the interdiction of precursor chemicals coming from Asia. We're battling fentanyl, these chemicals, and we're doing it because we care. No human is foreign to us, he said. It really matters to us to be able to help with what's happening in the United States. The deaths from fentanyl. But also, as we discussed today, it is not only an issue for the United States, because if we don't confront this problem, this scourge, we are going to suffer it too. So we have to act in a coordinated way. It's all fluff and bluster. Canada is being nudged by the U.S. and other allies to lead an international mission to Haiti to help solve the ongoing humanitarian insecurity crisis. Haitian Prime Minister Ariel Henry and the country's Council of Ministers sent an urgent appeal October 7th calling for the immediate deployment of a specialized armed force in sufficient quantity, to stop the crisis caused partly by the criminal actions of armed gangs. But more than 3 months later, no countries have stepped forward. Trudeau on Tuesday called the situation heartbreaking. Both he and Biden said that they will work. We need to make sure that the solutions are driven by the people of Haiti themselves, Trudeau said, because, well, why would we want to help those people of Haiti? What have they done for us except for, well, send more of their Haitians after me? But of course, Biden's not without fault. You know, as much as they like to talk about Trump, looks like somebody's having a little bit of problems here themselves. Oh, look at that. Someone got the Reunion West Patrol. They're just a hanging out there. Well, why are these folks hanging out? Well, in Miami. The Biden administration is undergoing pressure from leftists in Latin America as well as U.S. lawmakers to expel Mr. Bolsonaro from post-presidential retreat in Florida following his supporters' brazen attack on Brazil capital over the weekend. But the far-right ex-president may reattempt any plans for such a stinging rebuke. On Tuesday, he told Brazilian media outlet that he would push up his return home. originally scheduled for late January after being hospitalized with abdominal pains stemming from a 2018 stabbing. Well, isn't that just horrible? I came to spend time away with my family, but these weren't calm days. First, there was a sad episode in Brazil, and then my hospitalization. Bolsonaro arrived in Florida in late December, skipping the January 1 swearing in of Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, who became the first elected Brazilian president not to receive the presidential sash from his predecessor since democracy was restored in the 1980s. Bolsonaro is reportedly staying at the Orlando area home of Brazilian mixed martial arts fighter Jose Aldo, a fervent supporter. His visit to the Sunshine State went largely unnoticed in the U.S. until Sunday's attack by thousands of diehard supporters who had been camping for weeks outside a military base in Brasilia, refused to accept Bolsonaro's narrow defeat in the October runoff. Their invasion of Brazil's Congress and presidential palace left behind shattered glass, smashed computers, slashed artwork. Almost from the moment the images of destruction were broadcast to the world, Democrats voiced concern over Bolsonaro's continued presence on U.S. soil, drawing parallels between the rampage in Brazil and the January 6, 2020 insurrection by allies of Donald Trump, who stormed the Capitol and tried to overturn the U.S. presidential election results. Let's get ready to rumble. Oh boy. So stupid. Among those calling for President Joe Biden to give Mr. Balls the boot was Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, or as you know her, AOC. Nearly 2 years to the day of the U.S. Capitol was attacked by fascists. We see fascists movements abroad attempt to do the same in Brazil. Okay. The New York City lawmaker said the U.S. must cease granting refuge to Balls in Florida. Should be a no-brainer for the White House, experts say. Biden has never had a close relationship with Balls, who made common cause with Trump's top allies in the far right, and any action to expel him is likely to play well in Latin America, where Biden is courting a crop of new leftist leaders who have risen to power in places like Chile and Colombia, expressing concerns about threats to democracy. It's one thing to make statements about support for democracy, said John Feely, a longtime U.S. diplomat in Latin America who resigned as ambassador to Panama in over 2018 over differences with the Trump administration. It was all Trump's fault. It's another to actually take action in your own home where you have sovereign control, with someone who is clearly in league with the same folks who brought you January 6, but so far the Biden administration has proceeded cautiously. On Monday, State Department spokesman Ned Price, while sidestepping questions. Sidestep those questions. This is just step to the left, step to the right, sidestep those questions. About Balls' presence, said anyone entering the U.S. on a so-called A1 visa reserved for sitting heads of states would have 30 days to either leave the country or adjust their status with the Department of Homeland Security at the conclusion of their term of office. Biden's National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan was similarly circumspect, saying only that any request from Brazil's government related to balls would be evaluated, taking into consideration legal precedent. Typically, the U.S. is reluctant to discuss visa issues out of privacy concerns. Feely and the longer the Biden administration waits, the weaker its support for democracy will be perceived in the region. One place balls apparently isn't going is Italy. The former president is the descendant of the 19th century immigrants from northern Italy, and Brazilian media has speculated for months that he and his children would seek Italian citizenship out of fear he could be prosecuted in Brazil for corruption or his mishandling of the coronavirus pandemic. But Italian Foreign Minister Antonio Tajani told state radio on Tuesday that Balls has never requested citizenship despite being bestowed honorary citizenship in 2021 by the small town where his great-grandfather was born. There are laws that address who gets citizenship, Mr. T said, emphasizing his far-right-led government's strong condemnation of the raid on Brazilian government institutions by Ball supporters. It is not a political discretionary choice. Okay. That was all absolute word salad. Simple as that. Word salad. Nothing more. So, as you can see, Biden isn't as special as people like to say that he is. Because, if you're going to, be supporting, Ukraine and not Mexico, well, it seems to me that good time would be to actually, show it. There you go. Look at that. Ukraine war, conflicting claims over battle town of Soledar. Well, boom. As you can see, this is the kind of things that you will see in war. A little fire coming out, a little explosion here, a little explosion there. Brazilians. So imagine that you see this. Why would you not just take some time? That would be my first thought. Just saying. My first thought would not be to be trying to film. But of course, Russia's Wagner Group has claimed control over the town of Soledar in eastern Ukraine. But Kiev says it's, well, I can zoom in on that a little bit there. How about that? Oh, look at that. How do El Nino and La Nina change the weather? I was just talking about that. Russia's media carried a statement purported to be by the Wagner head. And I'm not going to try to pronounce any of these names. They said Ukrainians are now encircled in the city center. Defense minister said that heavy fighting is continuing. Claims by both sides have not been independently verified. Wagner units took control. We just said that. The statement stressed that only Wagner fighters who are part of the Russian armed forces were taking part in the storming of Soledar. Meanwhile, Ms. Millar said a few hours before the enemy does not pay attention to the large losses and continues to actively storm. So, who's telling the truth? Who's telling the truth? That is the question. Is it that they've captured it, that they're about to capture it, that they haven't captured it, that they're just talking out their ass? They approach our positions are simply strewn with bodies of dead Entombee fighters. Our fighters are defending bravely. So, Solidar, a small salt mining town in the Donsk region, don't even try to tell me that I'm saying those wrong, could help Russian troops to encircle the nearby strategic city of Bakhmut. The UK said earlier on Tuesday that Russian troops and the mercenary Wagner group were likely to be in control of the town. The Ukrainian president said there was almost no life left in Solidar, no whole walls left. This is what madness looks like. Zelensky praised the resilience of the Ukrainian forces. The strategic importance of Solidar is debated, but its capture would be significant for two reasons. First, it would allow Russian forces to inch closer to the regional city of Bakhmut. Russia could use access to Solidar's deep city-like network of salt mine tunnels dormant since April to penetrate Ukrainian-controlled territory. Okay. That makes not a whole lot of sense. If they haven't captured it, you would think that maybe that would be a good place to use this city-like network of salt mine tunnels to hide and fight. But they're saying that everyone's dead. But Russia's saying, yeah, we could use it to penetrate Ukrainian-controlled territory. Something sounds hokey to me. Secondly, invading forces would be able to give Ukraine a taste of its own medicine, probably some salt. Just throw salt in their eyes. It really burns. One thing that has helped Kyiv liberate I'm not even going to try to say it, liberate territory has been its ability to target Russian supply lines. Long-range missile strikes have often left thousands of invading troops unable to replenish personnel, ammunition, fuel, and rations, and stop them freely moving military hardware. The capture of Solidar, which had a population of 10,000 before the war. Hey, Rabbit, how you doing? Good to see you. We're just talking about the end of this Ukrainian war, which should be crazy. UK said it believed that Solidar was close to falling to Russia, but added that the Kremlin was unlikely to take Bakhmut immediately due to Ukraine's stable defense lines. Of course, these folks have been missing. Despite the long and intense battle, Olev Zandov, yes, absolutely, same here. I hate seeing my money go for another war. I was in the military. I still don't think wars are good. If there's a diplomatic way to end something, that option should be taken at all costs instead of this. Because all this is, especially this guy, he's just a showboat. And I don't trust him. Don't trust him at all. But of course, you heard about this man here, Baked Alaska. I'm not even going to try to pronounce his name. So, of course, he's a white nationalist influencer. He was sentenced to 60 days in prison on Tuesday for his role in the U.S. Capitol riot. Vietnam vet, no wars are good. Yes. No wars are good. I had a uncle that was a over the road truck driver, and it was still tormented him up until his passing. It was rough on him, really rough. I don't wish that on anybody. I've got a nephew that served two tours in Afghanistan, and I was lucky. I was able to miss out on all the fighting. A lot of the guys in my unit, they did not. So this guy right here, you've heard of Baked Alaska. He became a alt-right influencer. I don't know. See, I've been called alt-right. I've barely even heard of him. He became known for live streaming, and he grew his social media audience through a variety of racist and anti-Semitic posts and stunts, often involving harassing and insulting bystanders. Well, I guess that makes you alt-right if you insult bystanders. So, of course, he was president of the Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville, which was absolutely horrible. Was arrested for defacing a Hanukkah display and pepper spraying a security guard. It's just stupidity. And on January 6, 2021, he live streamed the Capitol attack and entered the building at one point shouting, "Occupy the Capitol, let's go. We are the Kraken, unleash the Kraken." That's horrible. Of course, most of that was probably for show, but he's probably a goofball. I mean, I wouldn't go to something like that. I had people saying, "Hey, you want to go hear Trump speak?" And I was like, "No, really don't need any of that. I could really care less." I'm not saying I don't like Trump, but I'm just not interested in going and doing stupid. Stupid doesn't work for me, not at my age. Let the young guys go do stupid. He was also shown swearing at a Capitol police officer. Oh, that's an offense right there. Swearing at a Capitol police officer. Prosecutors later said that the footage he took was helpful in identifying others who were involved in the riot. So was it a riot or was it an insurrection? I always am confused. So Jeanette's Twitter account with more than 120,000 followers. Yes, there is a lot of craziness now. We'll get into some of these crazinesses here. He had been banned shortly after the Capitol riot, but was reinstated last month. His Twitter account. He has since used his account to plead for the reinstatement of other white nationalist and extremist figures. Like who? I can't think of. See, I don't follow all the white nationalist and extremist figures, and I'm sure if someone said, "Well, this person there, white nationalist extremist," I would go, "Wow, I had no idea." That would probably be most of the answers that I would give on that. He was also one of the subjects of a documentary maker Louis Theroux's BBC series Forbidden America, broadcast last year. During the filming of the show, he started swearing and ranting at the journalist when questioned about his beliefs. Well, maybe that was just the way that he was asking the questions. Or was that possibility? I don't know. See, people go down those rabbit holes of insaneness and turn out like this guy right here. The son of a militia leader, Stuart Rhodes spent years plotting to help his family escape from his father's control. Now the elder Rhodes faces decades in prison, and the rest of the family is rebuilding their lives. Yeah. And as I can see, they're in a remote cabin in the mountains of northwest Montana. Yeah, I would probably want to get the hell out of there. I really would. And he's manic, of course. Okay, so dude's on a tear. Well, what do we know about Rhodes? What do we know about Rhodes? He's America's anti-government militia movement. Rhodes and 4 members of the Oath Keepers, a militia group he founded in 2009, have been on trial in Washington for their roles in the January 6th Capitol riot. They were charged with seditious conspiracy in this case, attempting to stop the certification of the 2020 election, which was never going to happen. On the other side of the country, they were watching the trial. Early memories, things were not always that bleak. His mother, she now uses her maiden name, spent much of the early years not in the backwoods of Montana, but in the middle of America's East Coast power centers. Well, go figure. So they lived in the suburbs of D.C., where Rhodes was an aide for Libertarian Congressman Ron Paul. Wow. They moved to Connecticut after Rhodes was accepted into Yale Law School, and having said neighbors are so diverse, my street looked like a lot of Sesame Street. Okay, so this is what he looked like before he actually started working out. It looks a little chunky right there. Just saying. So he started shaping up, and well, he's still a little chunky, but now he wears an eye patch with his glasses. He remembers the local pizza place and bagel shop. Of course, all these wonderful memories that he's got. So he moved to various states in the American West while he worked as a lawyer. Okay, so he was an attorney. It was born of an all-night writing session during one of Rhodes' manic spells. So dude's just manic. Okay, I don't understand. Well, that's not a bad thing to say. Not obey any order to disarm the American people. I mean, I see nothing wrong with that. Of course, dude's got a little chunk going on there. Okay. First, Rhodes did appear to find his calling. They launched an event in Lexington, Massachusetts, the site of the first battle of the American Revolutionary War. His family became integral part of the militia project. Well, of course, whenever you take it a little bit further over the deep end, that's sort of how it goes. It's just stupid and silly. So this guy, I'm assuming, is writing a book because, well, they're silly. So this really is a sad story for this kid. You know, too bad his father was manic. Well, I don't know. She looks a little manic too. Yeah, don't know too much about Oath Keepers, but of course, you also got this guy right here, Enrique Tarrio. I've seen some interviews with him, and I'm not really impressed with him. They're all far right, anti immigrant, all male group with a history of street violence against its left wing opponents. Just silly, stupid people. Everybody's trying to make a name for themselves. That's it. Just people trying to make a name for themselves. I don't understand this kind of stupidity. I mean, it would make more sense to, go out, have a little bit of fun, hang out with some people. Someone wants to do something stupid and crazy because they're getting worked up over what the government is doing to you. Yeah, sure. There's ways to do things the right way. Like, just for example, you can just, surprise government records found at old office. Huh. Go figure. Same thing he was accusing another president of doing. As of course, President Joe Biden was surprised when informed that government records were found at his attorneys by his attorneys at his former office space in Washington. He asked about the issue after the Republican on the House Intelligence Committee requested the U.S. intelligence conduct a damage assessment of potentially classified documents. Of course, he was speaking to reporters in Mexico City. Said his attorneys did what they should have done when they immediately called the National Archives about the discovery at the offices. He kept in office there after he left the vice presidency in 2017 until before 2019. Well, why did he have those documents still? I was briefed about this discovery and surprised to learn that there are any government records that were taken there to that office. Of course, you'd be surprised. I don't know what's in the documents. Of course, you probably don't know what you had for breakfast this morning, Joe. That's okay. You're still my president, Joe. Earlier Tuesday, Representative Mike Turner sent the request to Director of the National Intelligence, Avril Haines, saying Biden's retention of the documents put him in a potential violation of laws, among many that he's probably already done. Irrespective of a federal review, the revelation that Biden potentially mishandled classified or presidential records could prove to be the political headache for the president, who called former President Donald Trump's decision to keep hundreds of such records in his private club in Florida irresponsible. Those entrusted with access to classified information have a duty and an obligation to protect it. Yeah, I doubt this is going to do anything to him. I really do. He's a special kind of retard. And it's okay. It is absolutely okay to be a special kind of retard. I mean, I'm a special kind of retard most time. At least I try to be. Well, I don't know about special, but at least I'm not this guy. I mean, I may be a total retard or a special kind of retard, but I'm not this guy right here. Think about him. Trial begins for ex-New York doctor accused of sexual abuse. Well, isn't this special? Federal prosecutors in New York began laying out their case Monday against Robert Haddon, former gynecologist accused of sexually abusing scores of patients over nearly 2 decades, including the wife of former presidential candidate Andrew Yang. Yang's wife was getting wang from Robert. Grand jury indictment said Hayden sexually abused patients from 93 to at least 2012 when he was working at 2 prestigious Manhattan hospitals, Columbia University Irving Medical Center and New York Presbyterian Hospital. Those 2 institutions have already agreed to pay more than $236 million to settle civil claims by more than 200 former patients. So imagine $1 million per patient, and they will probably not even see that because the lawyers will chew that up like crazy. A federal case against Haddon is to focus on only a few of those women. So what about the other 200? So we'll take care of the 3 or 4, but the other 200, well, go pound dirty. You know, he was just getting a little touchy with you. He wasn't as touchy as some of the others. Creeps, and creeps. Why are there so many creeps? That included inappropriate and unnecessary breast and pelvic exams. In her opening statement to the jury, defense lawyer Deidre Von Dornum acknowledged that Haddon had hurt women. The former doctor, now 64, pleaded guilty to state charges 7 years ago, admitting that he had sexually abused patients. But Von Dornum asked the jury to acquit Haddon of the federal charges accusing him of enticing women to cross state lines to be abused, saying the doctor didn't know patients had traveled from places including New Jersey and Nevada to see him. The allegations are awful and shocking, she said, warning juries that she was not encouraging them to feel sorry for Haddon, but asking them to listen carefully to the women who will testify about being abused and hear what they say. She said the question is not whether inappropriate activity or sexual abuse happened, but whether Haddon knew in advance which patient he was scheduled to see on which days. Cancel, condemn him, the lawyer urged before adding, do not convict him for a crime he did not commit. Well, Assistant U.S. Attorney Paul Montaloni urged jurors to convict the doctor, who he said had assaulted patient after patient year after year. Several of Haddon's victims will testify during the trial, along with nurses who said they witnessed Haddon touching patients inappropriately. Why didn't the nurse speak up? I just don't understand this. You catch somebody doing the little diddly that they shouldn't be doing on a woman, then why don't you report him? There's reasons why you don't let people get away with that crap. One of the women who testified under the pseudonym, Kate Evans, described in graphic detail how she was abused. She told the court of how she rushed to a hospital restroom to wipe herself clean with paper towels and soap after he touched her. Dude, that's not cool, dude. That's your patient. I was so stunned and shocked that the New Jersey woman testified I was recognized as being abused and she was frightened. Well, yeah. I don't want to talk about that. That's horrible. For Haddon's accusers, the federal case represents a second chance for a harsher punishment for a doctor. In his 2016 plea deal with the Manhattan District Attorney's Office, Haddon surrendered his medical license but wasn't required to serve any jail time. The ensuing outrage during the height of the Me Too movement led other women to come forward, including Elvin Yang, the wife of Andrew Yang, who ran for president in 2020 and mayor in 2022. In 2020, she said Hayden sexually assaulted her 8 years prior, even when she was 7 months pregnant. Dude, you can call the sentence in the state case a slap on the wrist, dude. Why you do that to? Don't do that shit to women. Men out there, men. I know you're gonna be listening to this later. Don't go doing unwanted advances towards women. They don't appreciate it. They really don't. It's not cool. You know, just imagine like a really raunchy, nasty, smelly skank coming up and trying to get to you. Would you let her rot infested body, leopard skin, just she's got leprosy, she's skin fluffing off of her. Did you let her touch you? And that's about how these women feel. Self-preservation. Yeah. I mean, it's horrible. Don't do that, man. Ever. The district attorney, Cyrus Vance Jr., defended his decision because a conviction wasn't assured. His office sought a plea deal to prevent Haddon from practicing medicine or from victimizing additional women. Yes, Ying is not one of the women at the center of this federal case and is not scheduled to testify. Her public discussion of the case, though, helped raise its profile. Throat was getting a little dry. Had to drink a little water. It's just creepy. The Associated Press generally withholds names of sexual abuse victims from stories unless they have decided to tell their stories publicly. Yang and others have done. Haddon, who lives in Englewood, New Jersey, has been free on $1 million bail since 2020 while awaiting trial. The prosecutor, Montanelli, said the victims had undergone experience in some cases they couldn't talk about for years and experiences that scarred them. I imagine so. He added, these victims would give anything for this not to have happened. Objection, Von Dorum shouted. Overruled. Judge Richard M. Burnham responded. And that is the end of that guy. But since we're talking about horrible nurses, we got these nurses here. They go on strike at two big city New York hospitals. Why would they be striking? Thousands of nurses went on strike Monday at two of New York City's major hospitals after contract negotiations stalled over staffing and salaries nearly 3 years into the pandemic. I wonder, would that be, by any possibility, you think that it could possibly be these ladies right here?
Posting a TikTok video dancing to We're All in This Together on social media. And I have to say, definitely made me smile this morning, not only because they were dancing, but because they were doing it together. A lot of nurses don't know each other. A lot of nurses are helping each other, getting to know each other as they're working on the front line. So I just love that they were able to take the time out to just have a little fun.
So you think, maybe that's sort of come home to roost for them. Maybe you spent less time, doing your little dances and taking care of the sick. Just an idea. I understand. It gets a little crazy. I have a sister-in-law that is a nurse and a brother-in-law that is a PA. And, that stuff basically broke them because they were not allowing people into the hospitals unless they were meeting some specific criteria, and people were a little skittish of going into hospitals because of the criteria that was being imposed on them. So, yeah, I mean, they almost didn't do well economically, but I guarantee you they weren't out there dancing. So it's a privately owned nonprofit. Hospitals were postponing non-emergency surgeries, correct. Diverting ambulances to other medical centers, correct. Pulling in temporary staffers, yes. And assigning administrators with nursing backgrounds to work in wards to cope with the walkout. Yes. So let them go. That's what I say. Let them go. All 3,500 of them. And that's it. That's what you have to do. As many as 3,500 nurses at Montefiore Medical Center in the Bronx and about 3,600 at Mount Sinai Hospital in Manhattan were off the job. Talks were resuming Monday afternoon at Montefiore, but there was no immediate word on the bargaining might resume at Mount Sinai. Well, I will tell you what. It's pretty simple. Fire them all. Send the people to other hospitals. Shut the whole hospital down. Lock the doors. Simple as that. That's all you got to do. Because I guarantee you tell them that, yeah, okay, fine, see you, bye. Shut the whole hospital down. Ship everybody off out of those hospitals. Move them to other hospitals, and lock your doors. And that's what I would do. If I was a shareholder of that, I'd say we're shutting the whole thing down. I'll take my money and go. I know there's plenty of money left over and we can sell off whatever, but you would have a nice big fat abandoned hospital that you could turn into public housing if you want to. How's that? How is that? That sounds like a wonderful idea to me, because I do not like being held hostage, whether I'm an employee or an employer. I will never be held hostage. Hundreds of nurses picketed. Well, you know, if you don't have a building to go to, then let them picket. Some singing the chorus from Twisted Sister's 1984 hit, that we're not going to take it. Outside Mount Sinai was one of many New York hospitals deluged with COVID-19 patients as the virus made the city an epicenter of deaths in spring 2020. Not good. Yes, it was not good. But the thing was is they wouldn't have been deluged with patients had they sent those patients to the boats, the ships that were actually there, the medical ships that were there to care for them. But there was a certain mayor there that said, no, we're moving them into hospitals. We are putting them in old folks' homes. We are locking this thing down. We were heroes only 2 years ago. No, you were dancing nurses 2 years ago, said Warren, a nurse in transplant and oncology units. We was on the front lines of the city when everything came to a stop. No, it's we were on the front lines of the city when everything came to a stop. And now we need to come to a stop so they can understand how much we mean to this hospital and to the patients. Well, it's really simple. If you feel that you mean that much to the hospital and the patients, there's other hospitals. There's plenty of other hospitals. It's pretty simple. Doing a union thing, it's never going to work well because they'll just hire other people. I'm sure there are plenty of people that will be graduating that would love to become a doctor or a nurse, and probably in New York City. And I'm not saying that you're not underworked or understaffed, but it gets crazy. It gets crazy. Nurses Union, the New York State Nurses Association said members had to strike because chronic understaffing leaves them caring for too many patients. Okay. So that makes no sense. First of all, why do they have to strike? You don't have to. Chronic understaffing. So how does this help the situation? Oh, it's a novel idea. Maybe shut down one of the hospitals and then they won't be understaffed. You can send them over there. Oh, wait, maybe they suck at their job because they're too busy dancing. Jed Basabas said he generally attends to 8 to 10 patients at a time, which is not true. He might have 8 to 10 patients that are on rotation for him, but that would not be uncommon in any hospital situation. Twice the ideal number in the units where he works. Okay. So he can't handle more than 10 patients at a time. That's a little crazy. I mean, it's a little bit different working on cars, but I could handle probably about 3 cars at any given point in time. If I had more bays, I could handle more, but 3 bays was about all that was available to me. So I can sort of understand where it might be difficult if you're trying to get people in and out, but you can't do anything. But for God's sakes, stop dancing. Get to work. Nurse practitioner Juliet Escalon said she sometimes skips bathroom breaks to attend to patients. Okay. I don't see why you can't just say, I'm going to the bathroom and go. So does Ashley Woodside, who said her 12-hour operating room shifts often stretch to 14 hours. And how do you think the doctor feels? because short staffing forces her and others to work overtime. Well, you get paid for overtime. I know that I did whenever I was working like that. We love our job. We want to take care of our patients, but we just want to do it safely and in a humane way. Okay, where we feel appreciated. So leave, pack up, go. It's as simple as this. And if the hospital really wants to keep you there, they'll do one of two things. Pretty simple. One of two things. They will either hire more people because they can't afford to shut down the hospital, or they'll tell you to move on your way and they will continue on without you. Simple as that. You're not gonna break them. It's horrible to say, but we're not gonna break them. They get paid way too much money, way too much money. Those administrators are making about 4 times the amount of money that some of those doctors are. Not all of them, but some of them are making quite a damn bit of money, and some of them actually are doctors. They just are better suited as managers than they are suited as doctors. The hospital said they had offered the same raises, totaling 19% over 3 years. Oh, Jesus. That's pretty drastic. That the union had accepted at several other facilities where the contract talks reached tentative agreements in recent days. Wow. Said it had agreed to add 174 more nurses. Mount Sinai's administration said the union focus on nurse-to-patient ratios ignores the progress we have made to attract and hire more new nurses, despite a global shortage of healthcare workers that is impacting hospitals across the country. I don't know. I think Florida's doing pretty well right now. Maybe because they actually, care for their people. The hospital said Monday that they had prepared for the strike and were working to minimize the disruption. Mount Sinai called the union's behavior reckless. Of course, we know unions are the biggest destroyers of innovation currently in our United States of America. Now, it used to be that unions were a very helpful thing. They helped stop having, child labor, which I think should easily be brought back, but not on that kind of level. Just, I enjoyed it whenever I was a kid and I could actually make my own money, mowing lawns and stuff. Now, if I work too much, then, it's considered child labor. Glad I'm not a kid growing up now, because I would have been like getting a lot of people arrested for using me as child labor. Mm-mm-mm. I worked like crazy as a kid. But, what can you say? Unions. Yeah, I dealt with those unions in Chicago for a festival. And we pulled up. We had unloaded 2 stages by the time we were told to go back and pick everything back up, because it had to be unloaded by the union. So we loaded the truck back up at one stage, went to the next stage, loaded it back up. The union showed up about an hour later. They were on break. We had just driven from Georgia to get set up and get a little bit of rest. They weren't allowed to unload our truck, but we weren't allowed to roll it down the ramp. So one guy would roll it down the ramp, the next guy would get it at the next stage of the ramp and he would roll it onto the stage. Another guy on the stage would put it where it needed to go. And we could stand and tell him where it needed to go, but we weren't allowed to touch it from the time that it came off the truck. Whenever we first got there, we had 2 stages unloaded in about 30 minutes. When the union got there, it took close to 4 hours for them to unload 3 stages. Yes, seen both sides. And I'll tell you a good union story too. So it took, yeah, I think it was 4 hours to unload 3 stages, 4 or 5 hours. And then we had to go to the hotel room. And by this time, it was about 3 o'clock in the morning to come back at 6 o'clock in the morning to get everything set up for the stage, and working on no sleep. And it was hitting, what was that, Lollapalooza? It was hot. It was extremely hot. I mean, like, I believe it got into triple digits. I never drank so much water. It was crazy. Well, outside of being in New Mexico, I drank a lot of water that day. I was able to get some sleep that night, but it was just ridiculous that we weren't able to unload our stages, and it took them like an insane amount of money or time to do, and they were in no rush to do it because they got paid by the hour. So that was the good one, the fun one. And of course, the union job that I worked up in was it Kentucky, and someone got injured, and of course, we almost got kicked off the job because one of our guys went to go help him out, like by getting the forklift off of him, because the other guy that was standing there, that we're, because we weren't allowed to touch the equipment because we were non-union workers, that had just come in there to do a bunch of repairs. We were hired to do work on their building, and yeah, the guy, I think, got injured pretty bad, but nothing we could do about it. But the good part about that whole thing is because it was a union job, the way they set it up was we would get paid better than union wages by the boss, because the way he billed it out, I said that, still had to make a profit. We were the only show in town that could do this job, and he made out really good, and every single person that worked at that place made out really good. Unfortunately, this is the downside of unions, and a good story in a sense, is while I had left that company to go work on a ship, and of course they the 60 or some odd employees decided they wanted to start a union, and by law you cannot stop somebody from forming a union, and word got around they were going to have a meeting. He said, well, you can't have it here, this is a private company. If you want to have it, I can't stop you guys from having it, but I strongly urge you, please guys, don't do this. I pay you really well. Well, they went and had their union meeting, and word got back to him again, of course, because there were guys in there that weren't up for it, but they would go and hear what they had to say. And when all those 60 employees came back to go to work, the doors were locked up, and he sold the company, sold every single bit of equipment. So those 60 guys, a few weeks after Christmas, had no jobs anymore. And it was one of the best paying jobs, where somebody that actually cared for them and took really good care of them, paid them really, 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 really well. I think that was one of the best welding jobs I ever worked. I worked pipeline construction for 4 years. So, no, that was an amazing paying job for the work that they were doing. Unbelievable. But they wanted to start a union, and he said, at 60 years old, I've got plenty of money. I thought I was doing these guys a favor, because he would also take in a lot of prisoners that, guys that were ex-cons. He'd bring these guys in there and you know get them into church. And I mean, I'm not a big religious person, but if it's helping somebody out and giving them something better than, it's giving them some hope, I think that's a beautiful thing. And you know, got them to be healthy members of the community, and they destroyed it. That's sorry to hear, man. I It's the only option he had left, because they would have just run him through the woods. Just he was sad to do it. He was really sad to do it, man. But back to our wonderful, wonderful nurses here, because they called them reckless. Strike was sparking fear and uncertainty across our community. In my opinion, this action was totally unnecessary, the president said in a memo Monday afternoon. Azua maintained that the two sides had been close to an agreement on a very generous offer. Some patients, meanwhile, were left in limbo. Darcy took medical leave from her job at a suburban college library, made child care and transportation arrangements, got tests, and otherwise prepared for a surgery that was scheduled Monday but is now postponed indefinitely. While the procedure is considered elective, said it's essential to controlling her Crohn's disease. As a patient, of course, I'm annoyed and inconvenienced. But a union member herself said she blames the hospital management, not the nurses. Isn't that rich? Isn't that rich? Very disappointed in the administration for not letting the nursing staff crisis get out of hand in the first place, especially in the wake of the tremendous strain on nurses during the COVID pandemic. The COVID pandemic. Gervaso wrote she questioned why Mount Sinai couldn't strike a deal with the union when several other hospitals did in the last 2 weeks. Well, we think that these two hospitals can pay us a hell of a lot more money, so we're gonna hold our foot on their neck until they pay up. Hochul urged the union hospitals late Sunday to take their dispute into binding arbitration. Montclair's administration said it was willing to let the arbitrator settle the contract. The union did not immediately accept the proposal, and in a statement it said Hochul, a Democrat, should listen to the frontline nurse heroes, and respect our federally protected labor and collective bargaining rights. Well, you know what I think about your collective bargaining rights?
All right, our next story this morning to make you smile. First responders with the blind, so I just love that they were able to take the time out.
That's what I think about them. There's your collective
Have a little fun
bargaining
to let
rights.
their hair.
So you want collective bargaining rights. You want the right to do whatever the hell you want to. Is that what you're saying? Every single one of these nurses should have been fired. Simple as that. See you bye. That's your collective bargaining rights. I collectively would like to see every single one of them fired. Yes. A lineup of other city and state Democrat. Why did they say Democratic? It's Democrat politicians, including Attorney General Letitia James. She might be related. I'm just kidding. Joined a midday union rally Monday. Stupid. Both hospitals had prepared for the walkout by transferring these patients, including intensive care newborns, at Mount Sinai State Health Department. Representatives were at the two medical centers Monday to monitor staffing levels, the agency said. On fire in Mount Sinai are the last group of hospitals with nursing contracts that expired simultaneously. The union initially warned that it would strike at all of them at the same time, but the other hospitals reached the agreement as the deadline approached. all included raises of 7%, 6%, and 5% over the next 3 years. And it still did not work to get these silly ones fired, which would have been glorious. Huh? Right there. Would have been great. See all of them. Bye-bye. See you bye. See you bye. Bye-bye. See you bye. Oh, you're so happy. I see all those patients, just milling about in that hospital. How do you think those patients felt while you were doing those little dances? But according to the AP News, which, if we're gonna talk about the jabby jab, might as well have this right here. Isn't this glorious? Pentagon, they dropped the COVID-19 vaccine mandate for troops. Isn't this special? They dropped those vaccination mandates Tuesday, but a new memo signed by the Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin. He also gives commanders some discretion on how or whether to deploy troops who are not vaccinated. Damn it. There we go. Austin's memo had been widely anticipated ever since legislation signed into law on December 23rd gave him 30 days to rescind it. The Defense Department already stopped all related personal actions such as discharging troops. Amazing whenever you start losing your troops because they basically refuse to do what you tell them they're going to do, and you say, well, we're going to fire you, that they actually say, sounds good to me, see you bye. It's not the way that they wanted it to go, but they understand the Army's position or the military's position, and they were willing to accept that responsibility because they didn't want to get the jibby jab jab. But as they say, that vaccination enhances operational readiness and protects the force, quote unquote. Austin said the commanders have the authority to maintain unit readiness and a healthy force. Yes. He added, however, that other department policies, including these sort of mandates for jabby jabs, remain in place. That includes the abilities of commanders to consider as appropriate action the individual immunization status of personnel and making deployment, assignment, and other operational decisions, including when jabby jab is required for travel to or entry into a foreign nation. So, what foreign nation would we be dealing with? I wonder. Would there be a foreign nation that really sort of took care of billions of people across the globe? Would that be a country we might be going into that not having the jabby jab would be a bad place to go? Maybe it originated there. No, not there. The contentious political issue, which has divided America, forced more than 8,400 troops out of the military for refusing to obey a lawful order when they declined. Thousands of others sought religious and medical exemptions. Austin memo ends those exemption requests. Austin, who instituted that particular mandate on August 2021 after a certain company that I'm not going to give credit for doing jack squat except for making a lot of politicians rich. It was approved by the FDA, and that was as the COOF pandemic raged. was staunch in his desire to maintain. It's insisting the jab was necessary to protect the health of the force. He and other defense leaders argued that for decades, troops, particularly those deployed overseas, had been required to get as many as 17 different jabs that were actually tested and worked. Just saying. I know that when I went in the military, I was jabbed all to hell. And every single one of those did not make me feel the greatest, but I survived them. But of course, Congress agreed to rescind the mandate, with the opponents reluctantly saying that perhaps it had already succeeded in getting the bulk of the force jabbed. Roughly 90% of active troops in the Navy, Air Force, and Marine Corps had gotten the jab, and 98% of the Army. The Guard and Reserve rates are lower, but generally are more than 90%. Austin's memo was unapologetic in his continued support for the jab and his belief that the mandate kept the force healthy and able to protect America. From what? From what, I ask? What would be you protecting America from? Could there be a war that we're getting ready to go to? I don't know. I hope not, because I really hate war. War is so violent, devastating. Sort of, I would hate to just sort of drop dead in the middle, doing something active, just so I could go to war. Drop dead from somebody, popping a cap in my ass. Just saying. Of course, these efforts will leave a lasting legacy on many lives that we think we saved. This world-class force has been able to field at the highest level of readiness we have maintained amidst difficult public health conditions. Okay. In addition to, these people are stupid, because how? It didn't. It's the stupidest thing, because even people that got the jab were getting the coof. In addition to ending efforts to discharge troops who refuse the jab, Austin's memo says that those who sought exemptions and were denied will have their records updated, and any letters of reprimand will be removed. Isn't that special? Those who were discharged for refusing to obey a lawful order to take the jab received either an honorable discharge or a general discharge under honorable conditions, as it should be. Austin's memo says that anyone who is discharged can petition their military service to request a change in the characterization of their discharge. In their personal records, it does not, however, say what possible corrections could be awarded. Austin's decision leaves some discretion to commanders, allowing them to decide whether they can require vaccines in some circumstances, such as certain deployments overseas. Military officials vividly recall the overwhelming crisis of the Teddy Roosevelt, the Navy aircraft carrier that was knocked out of duty and sidelined in Guam for 10 weeks in early 2020 as the emerging virus swept through the ship. More than 1,000 crew members eventually became infected, and one unfortunately died. Military leaders worry that if troops begin to refuse the jab in large numbers, similar outbreaks could occur. Well, here's a novel idea. Don't lie to your population. It's a novel idea. Don't lie to your population. Because next time you have one of those little outbreaks because you lied, do you think they're going to trust you again? Do you think they will trust you again? Especially if you come up with one, say, in the next couple of years to sort of maintain your status quo. Do you think, people, let me ask, do you think that you will trust what they tell you? I don't know. I guess it depends on how bad they can make that lie stick. And there's enough people out there that do not trust what they tell you. According to the data compiled by the military as of early December, the Marine Corps leads the services. Marine Corps, sorry, my eyes are blurring. Leads the services with 3,717 Marines discharged. Hoorah. There have been 2,041 from the Navy, 1,841 from the Army, and 834 from the Air Force. The Air Force data includes the Space Force. It is not clear as if the services who are facing recruiting challenges will want or be able to allow any of those service members to return to duty if they still meet all necessary fitness and other requirements. Absolutely. I agree, Rabbit. That is absolutely the way to do it. Because, like me, I'm absolutely full of shit. I would lie if I needed to. I don't never need to. Mainly because I'm a bad liar. Or I could be lying right now. I don't know. That's a conundrum right there. Would a liar tell you that they were telling the truth? Or would they tell you that they're lying? But of course, with all good things, some things do fade. Like we don't know what this is. They call it the Mpox. So what would the Mpox be? I think it is called the monkeypox. It's faded. The U.S. deserves the credit. Wow. New York. Less than 6 months ago, monkeypox was exploding health crisis. What had been an obscure disease from Africa was ripping through the European and U.S. gay communities. So it's precious doses of an unproven jab were in short supply. International officials declared health emergencies. They were ready to lock everybody back down again. Wear a mask and protect yourself from the monkeypox. Those monkeys will get you. They will hurt your face. You'll be blistered up, top and bottom. Horrible. We're in a remarkably different place, said William Schaffner, a Vanderbilt University infectious disease expert. It's really impressive how that peak has come down to very, very low levels. Well, amazing whenever you see somebody with blisters all over their mouth and probably lower extremities, and it's pustulating and it's looking really gross. You know what? You might not want to touch it. So, yes, it's going to sort of cut down really quick. Remember what I said about them lepers? Them lepers be crawling all over you, wanting to flush off all their skin. They want to get a little kinky, and you just say, no, thank you. I appreciate it. Not for me. Yeah, that might have been a reason why it went down to low levels. But who deserves the credit? It's an unsettled question. But experts cite a combination of factors. Some commend public health officials. Really, public health officials were basically saying, your children are going to get this. And we know how the children were getting it. Interesting. Others say more of the credit should go to members of the gay and bisexual community. I wonder why. Could it be they decided that postulated face of yours is not really worth kissing? I think I will just stand over here and watch you postulate. When the threat became clear, some wonder of characteristics of the virus played a role. Well, you think? As I said, pretty disgusting little pus sacs growing off of somebody's anus is not something that you might want to stick your ho in. Just saying. Well, it's a mixed story. Or as we would say in California, it's a bisexual story in which some things could have gotten better, but others went well, said Dr. Tom Frieden, former director of the U.S. Center for Disease Control and Prevention. Monkeypox is a rare disease caused by infection with a virus that's in the same family as the one that causes smallpox. Wonder what you had in your blankets. It's an epidemic in parts of Africa where people have been infected through bites from rodents or small animals, but it was not known to easily spread among people. Monkeypox cases began emerging in Europe and in the US in May, mostly among men who have sex with men. Other words, gay! Cases escalated rapidly in dozens of countries in June and July around the time of gay pride events. Oh, wow! Go figure. Go figure. Everybody's happy. Everybody's happy. And they're so prideful. And guess what? They got all postulated. CIA, I'm telling you, CIA. We know what happened. The infections were rarely fatal, but many people suffered painful skin lesions for weeks. I imagine so. In late July, the WHO declared an international health crisis. In early August, the U.S. declared a public health emergency. Huh. That took a while. Soon after the outbreak began diminishing, the daily average newly reported U.S. cases went from nearly 500 to about 100 in October. There have been fewer than 5 new cases per day. Europe has seen a similar drop. Experts say a combination of factors likely turned the tide. Jibby jabs. Health officials caught an early break. An existing 2-dose jab named Jynneos, developed to fight smallpox, was approved for use against the monkeypox. Initially, only a few thousand doses were available in the U.S., and most countries had none at all. Shipping and regulatory delays left local health departments unable to meet demand for shots. But in early August, U.S. health officials decided to stretch the limited supply by giving people just 1/5 the usual dose. The plan called for administering the jab with an injection just under the skin rather than into deeper tissue. Some in the public health community worried that it was a big decision based on a small amount of research, a single 2015 study. But the CDC, of course, those wonderful people at the CDC, the special ones, they wear hockey gear, but they're not on the team. They ride the small school bus. They're called bobbly wobblies. Those people there at the Center for Disease Control and Prevention. Since then, it's confirmed there was no difference in vaccine performance between the two methods. They got criticized for the revised dosing strategy, but it was the right call, said Frieden, who is currently president of Resolve to Save Lives, a nonprofit organization focused on preventing epidemics. Cases, however, had already begun falling by the time that they made the switch. Go figure. Might have been the lesions growing on the anus. Doesn't look pretty. Community outreach. The current CDC director, Dr. Rochelle Walensky, cited efforts to educate doctors on how to better diagnose and treat the monkeypox. Other experts said that even more important was outreach to sexually gay and bisexual men, most at risk. I wonder why. In the first months of the outbreak, the government was cautious about focusing warnings too intently on gay and bisexual men for fear of stigmatizing the men and, in doing so, undermining the efforts to identify infections. And see, this is where you run into problems. Had it been much worse because they didn't want to say anything. That's why it wasn't the community outreach wasn't anything that helped because they were too busy trying to cover this up. Figure out what it is. We need to figure out what it is. I know if we reach out and tell the gay community, it's going to be AIDS all over again. Well, that was, AIDS could have been highly prevented had they actually taken the time to say, dudes, wear a condom. Trust me. Much earlier on. That stuff probably would have helped out. But of course, indeed, in November, the WHO changed the name to make it reduce the stigma because, well, just sounds like you got fucked by a monkey. What's that monkey doing to my... What's that bad man doing to my donkey? Son, that's not any bad man. That's... And he is fucking your donkey. They were a little coy about the population principally affected, of course. Many say that the queer activists and community organizations stepped up to fill the void, quickly offering frank education and assistance. And an online survey conducted in early August, many men who have sex with men reported having fewer sexual encounters and partners because, well, they had some pus around their lips and it was not quite attractive. Of course, we think that the success was really due to grassroots activities. Yes. Of course, a George Mason University professor of epidemiology that didn't want to tell people what the fuck was going on. Because leaders in the gay community took it upon themselves to step in when the government response was completely lacking. Not really lacking, it was completely lacking in a way that recalled what happened during the plodding government response to the HIV epidemic in the 1980s. And guess who was in charge of that one? That one would have been your dear Dr. Fauci. Fuck him. Among those efforts was called Respond. It was called Rapid Epidemic. It was basically a bunch of people. Okay. The grant-funded organization put out a transmission prevention message, conducted a community-led survey of monkeypox symptoms, and mapped the social and sexual networks of queer and transgender people. No, it just would be queer. Simple. Because why do they have to put all these extra names in there? Queer people. Nothing wrong with that. You're queer. You do something queer, that's queer. Fine. Be queer. No problem there. Why do you have to give it a name? It's just like, if you're being very specific, you've got gay, bisexual, queer, and all these other names that are thrown in there. If you want to be specific, but if you want to just name it one thing, you can say queer. Simple. Not the norm. Or odd, strange. Nothing wrong with it. What is odd to me is not odd to other people. What might be normal to me is odd to other people, so it would be slightly queer. Nick Diamond, a leader of the effort, said government response improved only after the gay activists pressured officials and did a lot of outreach and education themselves. A lot of HIV activists knew that it would be up to us to, of course, start a response to this monkeypox. And you notice he calls it monkeypox because that's what it is. It wasn't mpox, it was monkeypox. Not difficult. But Diamond also noted another possible reason for the declines. The spread of monkeypox at gay celebrations in June, coupled with a lack of testing. Vaccinations likely contributed to the July surge. A lot of people came out of Pride after being in close contact. Well, there's only one way that you can get that. It's not just close contact. You got to sort of get a little closer than just close contact. I guess they're too ashamed to say fucking. He said they suffered blisters and scabs, bringing home the message to other at risk men that the virus was a very real danger. Yes. Then, of course, there's biology versus behavior. There's also possible explanations that have more to do with biology than behavior. The number of new infections may have been limited by increases in infection acquired immunity in the men and the active social networks that fueled the outbreaks. Yeah. Past research has suggested that there may be limits in how many times the monkeypox virus will spread from person to person. The monkeypox virus essentially loses steam after a couple of rounds in humans. Well, yes, bodily fluids being exchanged in a most amazing manner. Like, I don't understand why every time I wipe, it's a little pustulous. Bob, why do you have pus on those lesions around your mouth? That is so disgusting. You might want to take a few days off. Yes, AIDS was horrible. And as a kid, growing up in the 70s and 80s, because I was born in 69. So growing up in the 70s and 80s, 70s it was more about the clap. That's that you'd hear about that kind of stuff. You didn't know as a little kid what that was, but by the time that I was understand what sex actually was, got to talk. It was like, and then of course AIDS comes around. Lucky for me, 1953. Congratulations. You were born around the time of the Vietnam or Korean War? No, is that right? That would be Korea War, I think. Yeah. But it was amazing to me that I could get a lot of action in high school, and then of course AIDS comes around. And you're just like, ooh, yeah, I think I want to hold off having the ladies around. And then once we found out that, well, it wasn't, it was more in the gay community. It was like, okay, cool. Now I feel much better. But yes, it was a little touch and go there for quite some time because you didn't know who was doing what. And you'd hear about, these porn stars that were getting it or supposedly could get it. And you're just like, what? Not knowing that, most of these porn stars were, doing the gay stuff too. Might be what was causing it. And then just spreading it like wildfire. Yes, sexually transmitted disease are horrible. I recommend protecting yourself in all ways possible. But bisexual crossover. Nothing wrong with you being a bisexual crossover, rabbit. That's nothing wrong with that. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I mean, if you are, that's cool. But yes, that would be how you were getting those kinds of things happening, was from bisexual crossovers. Yes, absolutely. They would be jumping in bed with pretty much, the dude one night and the ladies the next night or during the day. Me transmission. Yes, not you, of course not. And I know, I understand. I'm only taunting. Well, of course, I would thought about reading this because it's horrible. Married forever? Yes. Yes. I will probably be married longer than I actually better than half my life. I got married at an older age. Um, but married someone younger, and she'll probably outlive me. I mean, geez, both her grandparents were well into their 90s before they died, and I'll tell you, they were fiery. They were fiery. Both her the ladies in her family live forever. The men tend to, kick the bucket. Um, I hadn't told her because it's I don't want to make her feel bad, but the men in my family, as long as they take care of their heart, they tend to do really well. Me, I've got a bad ticker. I already know it. That'll probably be what gets me. It's nothing I can do about it. It's a bad valve, but you know it's just a defect. As a young kid, I had it, so I know that'll probably get me one day. And my father, which he's 80 something now, 88. I think that's right. He's born in 34. My mother was born in 43. Yeah, his age. Yeah, he's he's still up and doing really well. But anyhow, as we will see here, good morning. What do Democrats say is wrong with the package of rules? Well, Democrats denounce the legislation as a rule for MAGA extremists that would favor wealthy corporations over workers. Yes, and I will tell you, if I were to lose my wife at any point, I don't know. It would be rough, and I can't I can't I can't begin to understand it. I mean, I don't think anybody can even begin to understand that level of loss. And it's, I think about it, and it's just like, oh, I don't know. This day and age, this day and age, it's so, I don't know. I would find some other things to keep me preoccupied. Anything to make me smile and laugh. That would be where I would dedicate as much as I could, because it would be rough. My wife is an absolute sweetheart, although she can be a pain in the ass. Um, and that's on a bad day she can be a real pain. But I would always much rather have her being a pain in the ass than not being around. Always, always. So, what do Democrats say is wrong with the package of rules? Democrats announced the legislation as these MAGA extremists that would favor the wealthy corporation over workers, undermine congressional ethics standards, and lead to further restrictions on abortion services. Of course, what else is going on? The rapper Dr. Dre has spoken out against the use of his song Still Dre in a self promotional video by the Republican Representative MTG to celebrate her role in electing Kevin McCarthy as Speaker of the House. I don't license my music to politicians, especially someone as divisive and hateful as this one. Okay. Does that really matter? Just like all you have to do is just say, I didn't give permission. No. So stop. That's all you got to do. They're intensifying their investigation of Donald Trump's unauthorized retention of national security materials at Mar-a-Lago. And that's why is Biden in the news regarding classified documents, of course, right after the far right storming of Brazil's Supreme Court, Congress, and presidential palace was a grotesque and failed assault on its institutions. Of course. In other news, reflux structures exposed by receding waters at Great Salt Lake near Salt Lake City, Utah on December 22nd. Right there. There you go. And it's just, oh, they're losing water here, but guess what? They're getting plenty of water in California. Well, maybe if we rotate the planet about 2 degrees one way, we might end up getting that water and it'll land over here in the Great Salt Lakes near Salt Lake City, Utah. Jeez, it's just stupid. It's been drying up due to excessive water use. Well, California's getting all the water that they need. I'm listening to the accelerated chipmunk voice of the British singer Ray on Escapism, a rebound sex anthem that's climbing up the UK pop charts. Ray actually has a low, brassy singing voice, but I'm not listening to her official version. This one's paced 150% faster than the original song, making it sound like Ray has just inhaled helium. Who wants to listen to a song that sounds like a triple shot of espresso? Perhaps more people than you might think. The Escapism remix can be found on Sped Up Songs, a Spotify produced playlist liked by more than 975,000 people, and it runs over 4 hours. Oh my gosh. That's got to be unbelievable. Climate check. Study funds climate crisis worsened extreme weather. So wait, what is it? Imagine that. Relentless drought in California. Extreme rainfall in the UK. Record heat in China. But what was this? I thought, I could have sworn at the very beginning of this that it said, California's scenes show devastation from flooding, sinkholes amid barrage of atmospheric rivers. So that's amazing. But they've got a drought. So I'm having a hard time. I'm having a hard time figuring this out. Is it a drought or is it a monsoon? I mean, it could be both. That could be the desert. Which, amazing enough, California does have a desert. And that's about what it looks like. Some people get lost out there and are never found again. And of course, last thing, truly a renaissance period of social media, how U.S. agencies got funny. So how did they get funny? That's it? That's all they're going to say? Okay. So if you encounter a cougar, never approach it or offer it food. You are not a Disney princess. Most grandma reindeer collisions are entirely preventable. Please give wildlife plenty of space. Please be responsible when hot takes this Thanksgiving if your turkey is as dry as our forest. These are a few salient pieces of advice provided over the holidays by officials in the Washington State Department of Natural Resources. And of course, they have a wonderful team. So that's it. It's silliness. The end of the world is coming. Why is the end of the world coming? Why is everybody always up in arms? Since I was a young child, the planet has been cooling at such devastating levels that everybody's going to die. Now it's warming. Well, no, then it turned into warming in the 90s. It was the big hockey stick prediction. You know, by 2019, we're all going to be dead. Global warming is going to kill all of us. And then, of course, you know, we get another war. Burn lots of fuel to, you know, do a war. Kill lots of people. It's beautiful. But hey, you know what? Now we we've sort of mispredicted this for the past, 70, 80 years, because we don't really know what we're talking about. The models change, and, people have changed, and of course, the climate is changing, and so we'll just call it climate change. How's that? Of course, at some point in time, we'll call it something else, but currently, climate change works. Maybe we'll call it an atmospheric phenomenon, like we have atmospheric rivers. Who knows? Will we all survive? Will we all survive the end of the world as it rolls in? I mean, it's only 2023. Just turned 2023. I just imagine someone born in 2020 is 23 years old now. I mean, 2000. I'm sorry. I'm drunk. I'm not completely trashed, but I have been drinking a little bit. But it's hard to imagine that in 2000, if I would have been, yeah, I'd be. I'm an old man. I feel it now. Anyhow, I will say, I thank you so much, Rabbit, for coming on here and keeping me entertained. I really appreciate it. I'm sure that this will be broadcast far and wide. There will be lots of thumbs up, lots of likes, because the end of the world, as you know, it is coming. You're really old. Hey, aren't you a mod over there on Aussie's channel? I think you're really well liked, not really old. Not really old. You're just wizened. Got the wisdom to spread to the young ones. Got the wisdom to spread to the young ones because they need it. Even guys my age need that wisdom. Even if we don't like to hear it, it's always good to have someone around that's got experience in life. It really is. So don't be down on yourself for that, because it is always appreciated. Yes. Yes, it is. And that's what we've got the older generation for, is to keep us in line, keep us from doing stupid crap that we're known to do. I mean, just recently had a nephew call me up, and he's actually, I'm old enough to be his father, and he doesn't know a lot about cars, and neither does his dad or mother. They're not big car fans. I mean, they know when the oil needs to be changed, and they can change a tire and things, pretty basic, but something a little more advanced they couldn't. He calls me up and says, Uncle P, I'm not sure. I need to, I got this thing in there, and they're wanting to replace the brakes. Good vibes, good vibes, good vibes. Look at that. Cool Frog saying hello. But he calls me up and says, hey, it's this bill that they're wanting to throw on me. They want me to replace my rear brakes. They want to do a brake flush. They would like to do a, what do you call it? There was something else that they were wanting to do. Rear brakes, brake flush, and damn it, one more thing I can't remember off the top of my head. It was some other, like, tire rotation or something like that. And so I said, well, what does it exactly say? What were the measurements on the brakes? And he goes, I don't know. You just said that needed them. I was like, well, they may just be saying that out of mileage. Same way with the oil change. Oh, it's transmission flush for a CVT transmission. That's what it was. which those are not quite cheap, but he was like, well, I just had the transmission. This has got a brand new transmission in it. I was like, well, you shouldn't need it then. Oh, well, are you there? And he was just like, no, 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 I'm not there. I was like, well, go back up there, take a look, see what they got. Ask him what the measurements were on the brake pads. And he says, okay. So he calls me back up. He says, well, they didn't even pull the wheels off. I said, well, how'd they know if you needed brakes or not? He said, well, the guy said, you can tell. I was like, okay. I was like, these guys are full of shit. I was like, you need to get away from them absolutely as soon as possible because they will ruin you. They will take all your money. This is a scam. He goes, well, I took it in here to get the stuff fixed. I guess we had some recalls. I was like, well, did they do the recalls? I mean, how do you know if they did the recalls? I mean, they're telling you they didn't even take off the wheels and they're recommending putting, brake pads on it. They're recommending, I understand the transmission fluid because the CVT transmission doesn't have a dipstick for it. Some of them do, some of the older ones do, but his is a little bit newer. It's like, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, what should I do? I was like, get your shit and go. Call up the corporate headquarters, complain. It's like, how can you trust what they told you was right? Just because they say they did it, how do you know? How do you know? So that's one of those iffy kind of things. If you want, Cool Frog sent one over to you on Twitter. But that was one of those kind of things where I see that's why we need the older folks around Rabbit to keep us in line, keep us from doing dumb things, dumb moves. So being old is not bad. Being old is not bad at all. Good vibes, good vibes, good vibes. Hello, Cool Frog. Yeah, we'll see if the man, the myth, the legend, the Cool Frog is able to come rolling in here. Meanwhile, if he is able to come in, that would be awesome. What I'm going to do is I am going to pull up, because even though I am not as old as Rabbit, it is time for me to do this. Hey, how you guys doing? That's why I haven't been showing my face lately. I need to either grow it out or shave. But I sent you an invite there on the Twitter. Is there? Cool Frog, if you're interested. It's absolutely cool. If you don't want to, you can just say, not tonight. I'm working, bitch. That's fine. I'm cool with that too. But I will say, Rabbit has been hanging with me all night. Rabbit is awesome. I've been listening to my ranting and raving and just mumbling about the weirdest things. Hello, Nandor's man bun. How are you? It's good to see you. Oh, well, thank you, Rabbit. I appreciate it. My face might not be soothing, but I'm glad that my voice is soothing. Sometimes if I listen back to it, I'm going, oh man, my voice sounds horrible. I was looking for something the other day, and I was able to find it. I think it's here somewhere. Ah, damn it. Where did I find it the other day? Ah, I remember. It just took me a minute. I think. Yeah. Is that it? Nope, that's not the one. Man, I'm so horrible at remembering where I keep pictures. Because I've got several different places that those are at. Ah, here we go. So you want to see what I looked like whenever I was a young man? Oh, well, thank you, Rabbit. Thank you. I appreciate that. But when I was young, really young, and I would get teased about this too, because let's see, at this time I was 19. Yeah, 19. This is what I looked like at 19. Get to see this. It's creepy. Just saying, it's going to be creepy. Yep, that's me at 19. Yep. Still got the same scar from chicken pox. Me at 19 years old. Yes. One of my good friends in Texas. Same guy. I actually had a mohawk. And then you fast forward about 30 years. There you go. That's me. Much skinnier, too. That was after I finally decided to cut off all my hair. And I've got that picture somewhere else. That was at, if I'm not mistaken, that was opening for Steppenwolf, John K. Steppenwolf. That was fun. It was a fun time. Yep. So that was me at a much younger age. But that's sort of how it goes. Really? Wow. Yes. Let's see. From some of the tours that we did, there there was a band called Lillian Axe. That would have been ran into them in Texas, and also it was Lord Tracy was another band that we worked with. They were from Dallas area. Um, yeah, Steppenwolf was really great. Even I think they're still around. If John Case is still around, I mean that was quite some time ago that we played with them. Um, I actually showed up because at one point in time I worked with this guy that did. Yeah, Lord Tracy, love them. Yep, yep. The guitar player was really cool for that band. Uh, but yeah, the was it the where was I going with that? Well, anyway, Lord Tracy, we opened for um, Cheap Trick in Summers on the Beach in Fort Lauderdale. That was a really fun show. And that's where I was going. The keyboard player for them that was playing with Cheap Trick was David Bryant. David Bryant was a keyboard player for Bon Jovi also, but he was doing this as like a little side gig. And fast forward about 10 years, and David Bryant bought the B3 place that I worked at, because we actually were doing work on a couple of keyboards for him. We're doing a bunch of these chop jobs. So I got to meet like people like Chuck Levine and just like the amount of names that are up there just keep going through my head. I didn't get a chance to, but I worked on some stuff for Chevy Chase. He's actually a really good keyboard player. But fast forward a little bit more, we had, let's see, Steppenwolf. Yes, that's where I was going with it. So the Steppenwolf has a B3 the band, they have a B3 organ, and the roadie was working on the actual Leslie itself. It's the where you get that nice whoa 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 sound. So it was not turning, and I was loading my gear in and looked over and I said, "Oh," said you need a new belt for that." And he goes, "Yeah, where am I going to get one of those?" I said, "Well, I can have you one here, like, in, let me give a call. I can get one for you." So I called up my old boss and said, "Hey, would you like to come down and hang out at the show?" He said, "What show is that?" I said, "Steppenwolf at the Tabernacle." He's like, "Sure, I guess Steppenwolf. What's the catch?" I said, "Well, you just need to bring a lower belt for a Leslie organ." And so he jumped in the car and said, "I'll be there in about 20 minutes." Walked over to the guy and said, "He'll be here in 20 minutes with it." So, yeah, opened for those guys and fixed the keyboard players, B3 Leslie. And then the crowd sort of cleared out after we got done. It was insane. I mean, we were just the opening band, and it was insane. Tabernacle's a big place. Just looking out, seeing nothing but a sea of faces. The largest crowd I ever played for was in Connecticut, at the Connecticut School of Broadcasting. That was a blast. They have a festival that goes on every year, or some sort of get together, and they just were bouncing from stage to stage to stage. And me, being the goofball that I am, I think it was the second song, I broke the strap to my bass, and trying to catch it, I went down on my knees to catch it from falling and hitting the ground, and finished the rest of the song with, on my knees playing this bass. And then, took the strap and threw it out in the crowd, which they went bonkers over. but the strap was just completely destroyed. It wouldn't work anymore. I walked over to my other bass and grabbed the strap off of it and put it on and finished off the show. But yeah, that was probably one of the craziest crowds I ever played for. We opened for Bullet Boys, opened for Alice in Chains. That was in Hollywood that we opened for them. Well, actually, not Hollywood, but in Orange County. Opened for them, and then was Ugly Kid Show, and that was right like 2 days before we went on our second tour. We opened for them, and they had just gotten signed. So yeah, there was a lot of bands that were starting to make it big. I mean, the band that I was working with, this was before I met up with them. They were sharing space with Jane's Addiction. Yeah, like you'd see Perry Farrell all the time. I actually got a chance to meet Perry Farrell at Lollapalooza in Chicago. It was cool. Steppenwolf in 1968. Steppenwolf in the Spectrum in Philadelphia. Awesome, very awesome. That had to be a really good show because that would have been the original lineup with John Case and everybody. Yeah, because at one point Steppenwolf split off, so there's two Steppenwolfs. One is John Case. Yeah, Jane's Addiction. Yeah, yep. Jane's Addiction is probably one of my like early, earlier bands. Because a friend of mine in New Mexico, she had I don't know if you remember those Columbia trading house or whatever, publisher's house, clearinghouse, and my stream's postponed tonight. Covering for sick employees. Oh, that sucks so bad, dude. That's awful. Coming down the mountain, yes. Coming down the mountain. Da, 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 da. Yeah, no, I can actually play that on bass. It's pretty cool. But yeah, what was I saying? She handed me this cassette, and she goes, "Oh, I got this one, I got this one, I got this." I don't like any of the music, and I think it was, yeah, yep. It was Red Hot Chili Peppers was one of them, and let's see, there was Red Hot Chili Peppers. It was Voivod, which I wasn't really super impressed with. And Jane's Addiction was another one. I'm trying to think what else there was. There was like 3 or 4 of them, and I snagged them up. I listened to that Red Hot Chili Peppers like an insane amount, and was out in California, and I think it was MTV comes popping on, and all of a sudden I hear Jared's a race car driver with Les Claypool. And I'm looking at this guy playing bass, just being a total goofball. And it was like, oh my God, oh no, trust me. In the 90s, Sausage blew them away. Sausage was before they became Primus. That was Sausage. And that was amazing. Yes, as far as the Chili Peppers go, their music was much better in the 90s than it was later on. Absolutely. But back to Les Claypool. So Les Claypool, I got a chance at it was Midtown Music Festival here in Georgia, which they have in Atlanta every year. And what is it? Let me see if I can find it here, because I got a chance to see this standing off to the side of the stage. When there it is. Here we go. So let's pull this up. And I hope this doesn't get me copyright stricken, but it's pretty damn impressive whenever you see it. This is what the crowd looked like. I'm pretty sure that this was a different show, but it was part of their set at the time. What I'm going to do is share this because if you ever get a chance to see a show like this, now we also worked with them in there was Primus at Lollapalooza, and they had the big orange rubber duckies. I actually had pictures of that on my phone. That's back whenever I had the Motorola flip phone thing, and they were horrible pictures, but I treasured those. Those were awesome. But this right here is impressive. Mm-mm. Oh yeah. So cool. I always wanted to be a drummer. Ended up just dating drummers. Yeah, that's about how it goes. But I will say right now that women tend to be much better drummers than men. It's just it's the most most amazing thing that I've ever seen. Now, I can play drums, but I will my wife could probably do better than me at keeping that kind of rhythm for a longer period of time. She just the leg and hand coordination, she doesn't quite have them. She does not quite have that at all. But she's got the rhythm. She's got the rhythm. Yeah, that was Les Claypool with the Fearless Flying Frog Brigade, and that was a whamola that he was playing. And I got to see him do that live. That was really cool. Well, yeah. Well, I'm completely self-taught. So, and did I did okay. And you get used to it. I did. There was a little local bar here in Atlanta called the North Side Tavern, and it is an absolute dumpster of a place. This was back in early 2000s that I was playing there. A little blues bar, and lots of wonderful musicians around there, like Mudcat and a lot of the old blues musicians, and got to used to play guitar. Two hands are too bad now. Yeah, yeah. That thumb right there doesn't quite work like it used to. It's a little jacked right there, and that's from the way that I played. It would it's totally jacked it up. So, I mean, that's what's hanging right back there. That's one of my basses. I've got one, two, three, another one over here. Four basses, five basses. I got like five bass guitars and one, two, three. Yeah, three guitars. Well, one of them I don't consider it a guitar anymore because it was broken. Headstock broke. But I did a pretty good job of putting it back together. I just couldn't get my biscuit joint to work correctly on it. It just wouldn't hold. It's a special tie that you do to mount that wood in. So I'm probably gonna have to redo it, make it better. This is not a big deal, just a little bit of extra cutting and grinding. I mean, it was pretty damaged. What can I say? Sometimes that's the kind of thing that I do is fix broken crap. My this was classical. Yeah. I had over my entire life I've had a couple of classical guitars. A couple of really nice ones. I was never classically trained though. I wish I would have actually learned some of the more basic skills of playing that I missed out on at a it's because, what can I say? Sometimes you don't make the wisest decisions. So this right here, is that gonna show? I've got it here somewhere. What it actually looked like whenever I got it. Nope, nope. These are a few of them. Yeah, I'm going to show that picture. It's a horrible picture. It shows how damaged they are and how abused they've been. But I can show. Yeah. Show that. Show that. I think. Man, I know that I've got one around here somewhere. So I fixed it right before I left for France. Ooh, that's a pretty cool one. Got to show that. So the shop that I worked in, these guys would come in and want to have work done on their cars after like totally doing complete and utter catastrophe of modifications to their cars. Do you have a keyboard now? I'm not good at it. My wife wants to play keys. She's always wanted to do that. So this guy had come into our shop and he wanted to have a stop that screen and present share screen window. That one right there. So this guy brought this little beast into our shop wanting to have it aligned. And it's a mini. So the reason why he wanted to have it aligned is this thing, it was shipped over from England. Everything got moved from one side to the other. And so whenever he got it moved over from one side to the other, he had put in an entire new engine. They do these modifications on them like this. So that right there is an Acura motor, 4-cylinder, that has been slapped into this thing, which is about twice the size of it. He's got a supercharger on it, I do believe. Could be wrong. No, this one does not have a supercharger on it. But he does have nitrous, and this is his radiator that's off to the side. They cram this thing all the way in there. So once they ram all of this in there, all of the lower parts of it jack his alignment out and wear his tires out. So he asked us to take care of that for him. He brought it in to us, and I'll be damned if it didn't take hours to get that done. Yuri, yeah, the world is almost ending by bioattacks or World War III. And C-19 was a strong bioweapon by the Chinese military. It's modded to race. Yes, Yuri, it was modded to race. Except he couldn't drive it worth a damn. Just saying, he was a horrible driver. But now that I'm not doing that kind of mechanical work, it allows me time to do things like this. That is what's called, some people call it a Chinese stick chair. And it folds up on itself. And there's no screws, there's no bolts. It's rope that goes through the top, rope that goes through here, rope that goes through here, and it sits about like a lounger. And it's really quite damn comfortable. First time I saw one was in France. And I was looking at that thing and going, yeah, it is pretty cool. It is pretty cool. So the way that that's designed is it folds up, and you can store it away. That's really about it with that. Nothing spectacular. But I build things now, although the hands don't work like they used to. Hit the mute button. Aren't I special? It's cool. If you tried any Kindle flavored things. No. Yeah, I know. I muted myself. My mute button literally is, I will show you here in a second. My mute button is right there. So if I press this and I press it again, and it comes back on, but it mutes it out really nice. So that way, if I decide that I'm going to cough, I can just hit that. I don't have to figure out where the mute button is on my keyboard. Yes. So I built the wife a swing bed. She wanted something that would hang from ropes. And I redid our back porch was this screened in porch. It was crazy. Bear with me. If I can find it. Yeah, this was before I did the finish out on the screened in porch. This is what it looked like. And this is without the mattress. So you'll get a good idea. So this right here is got 4 ropes going through it. This is all Shishugibon, and with a little bit of gray dye, and then it's all finishing oil, and just smooths it out, makes it feel like butter. And inside each one of these, there's about 15 corks. They're cut in half. And then this right here is where you put wine glass. And I built this basically from freehand. She gave me the dimensions, and then I built it. That's the kind of stuff that I do now. I did that in 2019, something like that. I mean, before then, I mean, I did an entire bathroom and a pantry for my wife. I do a lot of the work for my wife. Maybe I ought to talk to her about that. Say enough, enough! You're killing me, woman. Tensile. Nope, nope, not at all. Not at all. But yeah, I've got so many insane pictures, especially from like France. If you go back and look at my stream from a couple nights ago, I think it was a couple nights ago, I showed off some pictures from Belize. The ones from France were beautiful too. Absolutely much better. I think my photography is getting better. That and I pick out things a lot more that I didn't before. You know, like this scene behind me. Can't really see it, but all of this behind me was taken in France. And the other one that I've got, let's see, what I'll do is I'll bring myself back in. I think it'll mute me, but give me a second. Yeah, that's France. And then of course this other one, which would be, where is it? If anybody can guess what this place is, they'll be doing really well. That is Bath. So Bath is in England or UK, and my wife and I visited there because she was a classics major, English major, highfalutin woman. That's what she was. She's a smart one. And a lovely wife. Very lovely wife. No. See, I gave it away. Venice will be this year. We're going to Italy this year. Only reason we can do something like this is because the mother-in-law is actually paying for a portion of where we're going to be staying at because she wants to have the whole family there, or else we wouldn't have been able to do Italy at all. It's going to be nice, but yeah, we're going to do Italy. We're supposed to fly into, what is it? I forget. She knows all this stuff. She just tells me, you drive. So that's what I do. I just drive. I am the driver. But yeah, it's crazy. I suggest anybody ever get an opportunity, most definitely go out of the country, go see some other places. The places that we've been to, it's just, I mean, the people are nice, the town is nice. Oh, I mean, it's just, even just going up to, what is it? My wife's aunt does this every year. She goes to the Biltmore, that's what it is, and walks the grounds. And they say that you can go different times of the year for different. All right, Nando's men bun, you have a good night also. Sleep well. Yeah, it's, man, I just don't see where I've got that particular picture. in here somewhere. I shall find it. Oh, yeah. And then I built her a glider. Yeah, that was pretty cool. Yeah, I'm not seeing it. Doggone it. Oh, well, it's not that big of a deal. I don't need to be sharing all of my pictures. And I will tell you, Rabbit, fixing things around the house and the barns is a very valuable skill. Because you can actually use a hammer and nails and a saw. You would be surprised how many people cannot even do that. My wife uses a hammer. I fear for my life. I seriously fear for my life, and my wife if she uses a hammer. But anyhow, I appreciate everybody for coming in. Sorry, Yuri, if I'm just fading a little bit. I've been going for, I don't know, since about 8:30. And I do have work that I have to do tomorrow, like real work, like insane work. No, I've got at least 20 calls that'll be coming in over the next 3 or 4 days that are going to be keeping me running nonstop. So I'm hoping that I'll be able to stream tomorrow. That's sort of my goal. If I'm not able to, because I'm just too tired, then I'll probably jump on somebody else's stream over there and just chill. I like listening to a lot of these guys. They've got some really good insight. Ozzy's a blast. I wish I had Ozzy's voice. Although everybody says, "Oh, your voice is so soothing," but Ozzy's got that Australian voice. I expect him to, come jumping out of a bush one day and just, slinging a snake over his head and using a boomerang to kill a kangaroo. Well, you're welcome, Rabbit. I appreciate you coming in. I really do. I keep hitting the wrong damn thing. It keeps bouncing around on me. So, yeah, and Meme's got like the smooth voice, as does Tug. Tug, if you ever listen to him, he's just primo guy, and such a great person, like personality wise. Just his laugh is oh well. But anyhow, I'm going to shut it down. And again, thank you guys for coming in. Thank you, Rabbit, for putting up with my bullshit all night, because it's always nice to have someone to interact with. And you seem like a very, very good soul, and I appreciate you. I appreciate Nandor's Man Bun, of course, and Yuri. So, but on all of that, it does have to come to an end, and I'll probably jump and listen to somebody else's stream as I fall to sleep to the gentle dulcimer tones of their voice, just easing across the waves of the sunset as my eyes slowly close and I drift off to sleep. But until then, you get to listen to this.
Exótica.